In this video, I'm going to show you how to calculate some basic summary statistics for individual variables as well as the entire data set in R. And in order to follow along, you can open up the summary stats.rmd file that I have on the math107-lu.github.io webpage, just so that you can follow along. I'm going to be using a markdown folder or file just like we do in class. And to begin, let's just load the two exploratory packages that we use, ggplot2 and dplyr. And so I'm just going to click the play button right there in order to run the code. And we're going to be using the Ames housing data set that we explored in lab 1. So let's load that data set in as well. Now I've already opened up my R project where I have the Ames housing data set loaded in my loaded in my data folder. And so let's see what we can do. The first thing we can do that I didn't show you yet is that we can calculate how many rows and columns there are using this dim Ames housing command. So the dim is the function for getting the dimensions of a data set. So what you'll see is that we run that on the Ames housing data set, and we can see that there are 2,930 rows and 82 columns. So that's great. We can also run str, which reveals the structure of the Ames housing data set. And what that's going to show you is the same information as if we went up into the top right pane in the environment pane there and clicked on the blue triangle next to Ames housing. This is going to reveal the structure of the data set as well. So if we run that in the console, what you'll see is something very similar to what's in that top pane. So that's nice to know as well. We can also look at the first few rows by saying, let's look at the head of Ames housing. It'll by default print the first 6 rows, just so you can see what it looks like. Remember that you can also always click on Ames housing up in the top right pane to open up a viewer tab. Now let's get to the main idea of the day, and that's to calculate summary stats. And let's first just review what a histogram of the sales prices in the Ames housing data set look like. So what we can see here is that we have a skewed right histogram with a couple large outliers here, just under $1 million. And so let's say we wanted to understand the center of the distribution of sales prices. Well, we talked about that we'd use the median to represent a typical or center value, and we have a skewed distribution. And so we're going to say, okay, let's run this code chunk, and what you'll notice is that I get a value. Let's unpack this a little bit. So median is the function we want to use, and we know Ames housing is our data set. So let's focus on this $ sale price. Sale price is the column name that we're interested in working with, and this $ lets us peel off the column with the name specified to the right. So what this whole thing is saying is that from the Ames housing data set, peel off the sale price, and we're going to see that over and over again. We could also get the 5-number summary just by saying quantile Ames housing $ sale price, and what you'll see in my console now that I ran that chunk is that you get the 5-number summary represented as percentiles. We can calculate the IQR directly. Of course, we can just do it by hand by taking the 75th percentile and subtracting off the 25th. But let's just calculate the IQR directly. We find that to be $84,000. And what if we just want to do some quick things? Well, we can run the summary here. So summary of Ames housing sale price. And what you'll see is that the summary gives us the 5-number summary plus the mean. But what does it do for a categorical variable? So let's look at central error now. So we're peeling off central error rather than the sale price. And what you'll see is that it just counts how many observations fall into each category. So it makes a frequency table very quickly. Another thing is that we can do the summary of the entire data set. So I'm going to run that really quick. And what you'll see is that for each variable, it gives what the result of that summary function is. Now you have to be careful at how this is coded. So let's go back up into the environment tab and reveal the structure here. So what you'll see is order and PID, property ID, are numeric, but they don't mean much numerically. So be careful when you interpret this 5-number summary plus the mean, because sometimes those will be categorical variables that are sneaking in there. That's just something to notice. Finally, let's just go over a couple more functions. So we already saw that we could calculate the median. I'm just going to go down here to the console real quick. For Ames housing and sale price, We know that we can calculate the median. To calculate the mean, you'll just use the function mean instead of median. And what you'll see is that the mean score is to the right of the median, right? The median is $160,000, and the mean is $180,800 or so. And so it's pulled to the right. And remember, that makes a lot of sense because this is a skewed distribution. And while the standard deviation isn't something I think you should calculate for this skewed distribution, you can calculate it using the SD function, just to show you how that works. You can also calculate the minimum value using min and the maximum value using max. These are our basic summary stats that we'll be using in intro stats this term. We'll talk about more complicated things, but this gives you a basic overview.